GameSir, that's a cute company name if I've ever heard one. Some of you may already know this brand, but prior to today, I've actually had no exposure to them at all. So when they reached out to me and asked if I could test out their G4 Pro gamepad, well, I didn't really hesitate to do so because come on, look at this thing. It looks cool. It apparently is, pretty feature packed as well. It might actually be a decent multifunction alternative as it works for Android, iOS, PC, and even the Nintendo Switch. I can't wait to get started with this one, so let's find out how this guy performs with a review on the GameSir G4 Pro. As usual with something like this, we start off first with a bit of an unboxing. After sliding the outer sleeve off and opening up the box, of course, first up is the G4 Pro in all its glory. Further beneath that we find the manuals, a USB Type-C cable for charging, some GameSir stickers which, honestly look pretty cute and funny as it looks like a badass chicken, and a thank you slip from the CEO and founder of GameSir. The profile of the gamepad itself feels like an Xbox One controller, which isn't a bad thing for me as I do like the Xbox One controller for its feel and ergonomics, except that the GameSir comes ahead that after a long gaming session with the Xbox One controller, my palms and the controller tend to get a bit sweaty and slippery, but the G4 Pro has these rubber grips where the palms are, and they really help to improve the grip on the gamepad, especially after a long, intense gaming session. The build quality of the G4 Pro is also really good, unlike most other third-party controllers, and in some cases, it's even better than first-party ones. This controller definitely feels a lot better than my Xbox 360 controller, and it just ever so slightly loses to the build quality of my Xbox One controller, kinda like, 90-95% of it. The gamepad itself is purely wireless with an 800 mAh battery built into it. It charges up via USB-C, and speaking of battery, the battery indicator is shown via these 4 lights on the center left of the controller at increments of 25%, although unfortunately mine came with a defect where the bottommost LED did not light up. The analog stick and buttons feel really good and solid to use. They're not quite Xbox One level quality, but they're still a lot better than what I expected. With almost every console having a different location for their ABXY buttons, a neat trick that the G4 Pro can do is rearrange them by popping them off as they're just held in magnetically, though I didn't find this all that easy to do with just my fingers as the magnets were really strong and I needed something harder and thinner, sharper to lift the buttons off the gamepad. The trigger and shoulder buttons are metal coated. The G button on the gamepad serves as the select button, and over on the other side, the S button serves as the start button. At this point, you might be thinking, yeah, you know what, that looks like it's about covered. But that's where you'd be wrong, kiddo, because there's actually more hidden below the center piece, a turbo button and a screenshot button, and the hinge bracket itself can be used to hold your phone for when you're mobile gaming. You of course turn the gamepad on by long pressing the center GameSir button, but depending on what you'd like to connect it to, you'll also want to hold down either A, B, X or Y simultaneously, as that's how you switch the operating modes on the G4 Pro. For example, to pair it with your Android device, you hold down A and the home button together and the button lights up blue. This puts it in a standard Bluetooth mode, and I used this to play some Monster Hunter Portable 3rd on my Poco F1, and I experienced no issues with it and had a great time playing it. Hi. Just a little edit to my script here. Back when my phone was running Android 10, I had no problems using this and pairing it to my mobile device, but ever since I updated to Android 11, it is now broken as the analog and D-pad don't work at all in games. Now this isn't the fault of GameSir, but rather Google, as they screwed up something with their new accessibility settings in Android 11 that prevents these buttons from working at all. Now, some people have had luck disabling accessibility options for some apps and whatnot, but I wasn't as lucky, as no matter what I did, I still couldn't get it to work. So until Google fixes it, gaming on Android with this controller and maybe every other controller is still kinda broken. This, of course, is a huge improvement from my previous mobile gaming gamepad, the Moga Hero Power, not just in terms of ergonomics, as with that I had to spend a lot of time key mapping the analog sticks and the buttons correctly in PPSSPP. Well, what if you're on Team Apple? Well, pressing B and the home button turns the, button purple and allows you to pair it with iOS devices, but I found that this mode also allowed me to pair it with my Bluetooth-enabled PC as an Xbox One controller. You know what? I'm not sure if this was intended at all, but it is pretty cool because it meant that I could play my games on my PC as if this was just another Xbox One controller. And I don't have an Xbox console to test this out with, but it may even be possible that you can pair it with an Xbox console. But I'm just guessing. Well, okay, what if you don't have Bluetooth on your PC or laptop though? Well, I'm glad that you asked, because if you thought that center section was done hiding secrets, then you'd be wrong, because it's still got one more trick up its sleeve, as this little notch at the bottom actually hides and houses a USB receiver, and that's exactly what X and the home button is for, as it turns the button green and it pairs to that USB receiver. Finally, we have Y and the home button, which lights the button up red and allows you to pair it with a Nintendo Switch, and to test this, I headed over to a friend's house and used this controller with their Switch to play some Mario Kart and had no issues with it. Heck, you could even play it with the built-in gyroscope. Yes, it has that too, but just like, almost every other game where you try to control it with the gyro, you don't get the amount of precision that you can with an analog stick. So for games as competitive as Mario Kart, well, that just won't really do. Now all of this sounds cool and all, but you must be thinking to yourself, okay, how much does this cost? Not a lot really. It goes for about $49 over on Amazon, and while that pricing puts it higher than most, generic replacement options, it still comes in cheaper than the official controllers. And bear in mind that you're effectively getting like 4-in-1 with this controller, meaning that if you did intend to get a new controller for each of your gaming devices, assuming of course that you have all 4 consoles, well, 3 consoles and a PC, you effectively only need to get 1 instead of 3. With that said, I think that really covers my feelings for the GameSir G4 Pro. It's honestly a really cool controller. You know what? I even like it better for long-term use versus my official Xbox One controller because of, smooth surfaces. And at $49 it really is quite worth it for the money. I can definitely recommend you guys check this controller out if you're in the market for a game controller, as something like this to me is any day better than those crappy and cheap aftermarket controllers. Yeah, that pretty much sums it for this review, I guess. If you'd like to get one for yourself, I'm probably going to leave a link for it down on Amazon in the description below. It sends a small kickback my way and it helps me make videos like these. But what also helps me, of course, is if you guys liked the video, if you liked it, leave any comments down below about the controller or, this review, and subscribe and get notified with the bell icon for any of my future videos. My name is Yang, the Tech Rodent, and I think I have a lot of controllers by now, but I don't actually play a lot of games using the controller. Well, except maybe Dark Souls. Dark Souls is fun and much better with the controller. Well, and some other games as well. Yeah, I'll see you guys around.